Go ahead and call this meeting of the Pittsburg City Commission to order. Would you please join me in the invocation given tonight by Mark Chambers from the First United Methodist Church?
Shall we pray? Holy Father, we ask your blessings upon this council and upon all the city leaders. May all decisions be made tonight in peace and harmony and be for the good of Pittsburgh. And we ask you to continue blessing this wonderful city. And Father, we ask you now, as we approach the Memorial Day weekend, we ask you to help us to remember all those who have given of their life for us, who served their country, regardless if they died across the seas or here. We give thanks for them. Continue blessing our country and our nation. We ask these things in Christ. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we'll open up the meeting for any public input. If there's anybody that has anything, if you come forward, state your name and where you're from. Yeah.
It's a mob.
It is a mob.
Brought exciting. We love mobs. That's great.
Yes. We also need Police Chief Mindy Hurley to come forward, plus our Fire Chief, Mike Simons, please. Anyone else you want to come? And I want to thank the City Commission for having us today. We are representatives of Aglow International, and Aglow International is a global movement of men and women who are called to bless and pray for our cities, our states, and our nations. Pittsburgh Aglow has been active here since the mid-1970s. We are called to honor those who are in authority over us. Now I want to speak this to the two chiefs. So I'm going to scoot back a
Can we
little.
get, unfortunately, nobody's going to be able to hear you, so if you can get the chiefs
Oh,
to
okay.
by the
That'd
mic.
be, thank you.
Everybody at home will call in and yell at us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
We are called to honor those who are in authority over us, and we want to honor both the Pittsburgh Police Department and Pittsburgh Fire Department. One of our goals is to bless and pray for these departments. So, as a small token of our appreciation, we have baked cookies through the months to serve both departments periodically. Also, we have committed ourselves to pray for the fire and police departments and their families. We want to present these media art portraits, and would you take them to them, please, to you. As a token of our thankfulness for protecting our community day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Thank you for your sacrificial service. Thank you for risking your lives for the people of Pittsburgh, Kansas, and the area. The scripture speaks that there's no greater love than one who lays down his or her life for another. We shall continue to pray Psalm 91 over all of you. And again, we thank you for your dedication and service to keep our community safe. God bless you.
That's very nice.
This isn't might be open. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, how nice. Thank you for doing that.
Please.
Thank you very much.
And one question for you, lady. When do you bake cookies? I like cookies.
We'll just stay around.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other public input this evening? If not, I'll close the public input and move to consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed?
C.
Okay,
I'd like to remove B.
B. Okay, do I have a motion, the exception of B and C to approve?
So moved.
I second it.
Roll call vote?
Gray,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Ketterman,
Aye.
Munsell,
Aye.
Murnane.
Hi.
Okay. We'll go with item B. Approval of staff to recommend award the bid the purchase of tactical protective equipment for the special response team to Ed Rower Safety Products of St. Louis, Missouri, based on their low bid meeting specifications. Jeremy?
So we were talking a little bit about what they'd be used for before, earlier today. Could you maybe explain a little bit the use that they'll be put to?
Sure. The bid award, and I apologize, in reviewing the memo, I forgot to include the funding source. So part of the Public Safety Sales Tax Initiative was to reestablish our special response team. We've had one in the city for many years. It's very expensive. The equipment, obviously, with the proposal in front of you, you understand the expense. But this is very important equipment. These are officers who intentionally put themselves in harm's way going into situations we know to be potentially armed and dangerous. Over time, we had to disband the SRT team, one, because of personnel issues, funding issues for training, but mostly because the equipment became antiquated and outdated. And obviously, we just didn't have the funding to buy the necessary equipment. So what we're bringing you tonight is the last piece in the puzzle, if you will. Over the last 2 years, we have slowly started replacing the antiquated equipment. Last year we bought weapon platforms. This year is the protective equipment and uniforms. We've purchased the uniforms already. So this is the last piece that will allow us to get our special response team back up active and ready to respond to the needs of the community.
And can you talk a little bit about the purpose to which the special response team would be put, and maybe the extent, like, I guess, in my mind, like, how much is it used, that kind of thing?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I hope we spend this money and never use it. Unfortunately, the situations that we face on a daily basis, we had a barricaded situation in our community here a month or so ago. So this is what this type of unit is used for. We also use them for high-risk warrant service. For example, if we're doing a narcotic search warrant, we know the individuals are armed, possibly under the influence and unstable. So these individuals, it's protective gear above and beyond what the officers wear on the street. And so it's specifically designed to protect the officers, get in, resolve the situation, and move forward with whatever activities we have, whether it be a hostage situation, a response. You've probably seen many of these things in different communities. The North Hollywood bank robbery many years ago in California really drove home the point of special response team. Those individuals were highly armed, well protected, and frankly, just the law enforcement was outgunned, and it was an ugly day. So we hope to never have to use it, but again, the reality is we need it on standby, so if we need it, we can respond quickly.
And you had mentioned that it had been in place before and then had kind of fallen out because of funding stuff. I mean, so is there funding or structure in place so that doesn't happen again?
It is. Again, the public safety sales tax was, this was one of the many pieces to the puzzle, if you will, that we realized we were behind. The sales tax allowed us to put staffing in place. We can now have the team in place. We have the officers. We have patrol stabilized, so we have the folks. We have the ability to be able to let these guys go out and train. Before, we were, at one point, we were one shift short on police officers on the street. So you can't take 10 members of a team off the street and go train for 4 hours. Now we've stabilized through the officers that we've been able to hire. Again, the funding's in place to pay the overtime for training, the equipment piece, and so we've brought that all in.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Item C, approval of staff recommendation to enter into a memorandum of understanding for collaborative effort between the Crawford County Attorney's Office and the Board of Crawford County Commissioners, the City of Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh Police Department to provide funding for an assistant county attorney position and one support staff member to prosecute felony and civil forfeiture cases arising within the city limits of Pittsburgh, Kansas, and directly investigated by the Pittsburgh Police Department.
I don't have any questions on this. I just wanted somebody to come up, and maybe somebody's watching this meeting tonight, and briefly explain how this is going to be a great benefit for the citizens of Pittsburgh.
I'd be happy to. You know, again, I think we're talking about the public safety sales tax initiative quite a bit tonight. This is a part of that. Pittsburgh's really never, we participated in drug task forces, statewide task forces, regional task forces over the years, but we've never really had a standalone unit that just focused on Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh alone. And that was one of the things we talked a great deal about, and we know that we have a tremendous problem with property crime, and part of the fallout with that is associated with illegal narcotics. So we wanted a unit that would be focused on Pittsburgh and be very aggressive in that movement to combat illegal drugs. Well, the unit started, and we had it in place for about a year, and we quickly realized that the volume that they were doing surpassed what our expectations would be. I believe that first year we presented our increase, our felony cases that we presented to the county attorney's office increased by about 125%. And they found themselves quickly overwhelmed. I mean, we're going in, we're presenting 60 cases with multiple charges, and we're talking about felony cases. And so hands came up, what are we going to do here? So we got together, we met, myself, county attorney, Michael Gayoso, Darren, city prosecutor, John Missouri, and we developed an MOU and decided that this was something that we felt like we needed to do for Pittsburgh. I mean, it's one thing to go out and do the work, but if you don't have that prosecution piece, then it falls apart. And we realized that we want the whole big picture. So in doing this, we'll get that piece. Again, the counties, they're doing their part. They've offered to cover the benefits of this staff person, and we will cover the salary of this person. We think it's going to be very beneficial. And when I say that, I don't just mean in prosecuting the cases. This person's going to work out of the police department. They're going to work hand in hand with the narcotics unit. They're going to help make those decisions on search warrants and other things that are related to the job at hand. So I think they'll get a lot of structure, they'll get a lot of advice, and have an attorney present and available for them. So I think it reaches beyond just sheer prosecution. John, would you like to say anything?
Chief Halvey did a perfect summary of it. I mean, it's just to assist and make sure that we have somebody here working with them hand in hand to make sure that these cases do in fact get prosecuted. They can make all the arrests they want, but if the county attorney's office is overwhelmed and can't actually file the charges or then proceed with the actual litigation, all that work goes for naught. So this is to have somebody focusing solely on City of Pittsburgh drug crimes and the ancillary crimes that go with it.
Thank you, Mindy and John, and thanks for all involved to put this together. It is a great benefit to the city. I don't have any further questions. If there's no other questions, I move to approve item C.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You guys.
Thanks, guys. Special presentation, 2015 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Well, another year's been wrapped up. 2015's finalized, and we've got the audit and the comprehensive financial report completed. And I have Audrey Oderman of Mize Hauser and Company, of the city's auditing firm, here to give a little wrap-up and answer any questions that you may have concerning the audit. from last year. Audrey?
Good evening. I'm going to start out my presentation talking about some of my favorite parts of the financial statement. And yes, they are exciting. Okay, so starting on page 3 and through 14 is management's discussion and analysis. I really like this part of your financial statement because it allows Jamie and his staff an opportunity to look at the financial information from this year, compare it to last year. It's really the only place where all of the city is brought together and compared to the prior year. And they can analyze and determine some of the city's strengths over the year, areas to work on, and that's a really interesting piece of the financial statement, I think. Moving on to page 15 and 16 is the government-wide financial statement. These are the pages where the city is all brought together onto 2 pages. Probably most closely compares to a business financial statement. If a government financial statement is going to get close, it's going to be on these 2 pages. It shows all of the assets of the city, the long-term liabilities, the current liabilities, and of course the net position or the equity of the city, if you will. There was a little bit of a change this year, and it has to do with capers. We knew this was coming. It's a national standard that was issued that requires that the city take their portion of the capers' unfunded liability and put that in their financial statement. So Capers has got this big liability that they haven't funded, and the city of Pittsburgh owns a piece of it, whether it be through Capers or KP&F, and so that liability is recorded in your financial statements. There's not a lot you can do about it. There's not a lot of how you can change the funding source. The liability is determined by the auditors of Capers, and they pass that on down to the city. We audit it to make sure that they allocated it correctly, and then Jamie records it in the financial statements. So that you're going to see a big liability shift there from last year, and that's really what's driving that on those pages. We're going to skip forward quite a bit because I want to point out where the notes are in the financial statements that talk about that net pension liability. They start on page 49 and they go through 53. So if you really want to read up on it, they're very detailed notes. And will give you a lot of information and where to go if you want further information on that particular liability. The remainder of the note disclosures in the financial statements are very similar to the way they were the year before. Not a lot of big changes in the city or a lot of changes in the other standards that drive these financial statements, so very similar to what they look like last year. There's a lot of other really good information in here, a lot of budget to actual. So if you have a particular fund that you're interested in or department level, there's a lot of very detailed information within these financial statements. But my next favorite part of the financial statements start on page 69 and they go to 91. And that's the stat section. Of course, it's been in here for a long time, but it provides a lot of really good trend information. So, and 10 years of trend information. So if you really want to look at how the city has changed financially over the last 10 years, that's a really good place to look. A lot of you can see growth areas, changes in obviously your public safety. You're going to see a lot of those things driven in that stat section, and some really good information. You can see how the city has progressed over the 10 years. We do have some reports in here that are our reports. Most of the financial statements are compiled by the city, and we put it together in a fancy little report. But there are 3 letters in here that we write. The first one is on page 1 and 2, and that's our auditor's report. There's a lot of information in here. It talks about management's responsibility, our responsibility, but most importantly gives the opinion on the financial statements. That's really what everybody probably cares about. So on page 1, there is a big header that says opinion. It's a very long run-on sentence, but what it basically says is you have an unmodified opinion for the financial statements of the city, which is the highest opinion that these financial statements can receive. It speaks very highly about the work that you do in these meetings, the people that you hire, and Jamie's staff. Really, they do an excellent job. They're very organized, they're very professional. They call and they ask really good, knowledgeable questions, do a lot of research. There's a lot of times where I'll open my email up and there'll be an email from Jamie saying, hey, did you see this accounting pronouncement? Don't have a lot of clients that do that. So he does a really great job, and we appreciate working with him very much. And it speaks to your financial statements and your unmodified opinion, and of course the award you received from GFOA as well. So unmodified opinion. Then we go on to our second letter, which is on page 96 and 97. And that letter talks about the internal control work that we do. Our professional standards don't let us give an opinion on your internal controls, but they do require us to tell you if there's any glaring problems, what we call significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. If you look through that letter, you'll notice it's pretty boilerplate language. We didn't note any of those issues, and we didn't note any non-compliance with laws and regulations as they relate to the financial statements. On to page 98 and 99 is our third and last letter. This letter talks about the federal aid that the city receives. So if the city spends more than $750,000 in federal aid, they have to have a special audit. We call it a single audit, where we audit at least 25% of those federal grants. We audit much more than that because you have one very large program. And that's Section 8 Housing Choice Vouchers. That's the program that we audited this year. It's a very complicated program with a lot of very complex federal issues that go along with this program. You can see the results on page 94 on that particular audit. Again, it's an unmodified opinion, so it speaks very highly about the work that they do there. It's a lot of very detailed information. The federal government doesn't take compliance requirements away, ever. I've been doing this 20 years and I've never seen it happen, so they seem to add it on all the time. There was a big revamping of the federal rules that go around grants given to cities. And that department did a really good job of interpreting those rules this year and applying them. So we commend them on that, and they received an unmodified opinion as well. And of course, I have to say, we always like to come down to Pittsburgh and find great food. And like Jamie always says, spend a lot of money on sales tax. You appreciate that. And we like coming down here and working with your staff. So thank you for allowing us to do that. Any questions?
I just want to say thanks.
Absolutely.
It's always, Jamie does not let us forget what week the auditors will be here, and we are all prepped, and we are all available, and you guys do it seamlessly, and I appreciate all your nice comments about the staff, because they do an excellent job, and it's nice to hear somebody from outside the organization recognize that, because most people, I don't think, comprehend really what they do. And
Very
how
technical work.
important it is, and how it's easy to botch it, so thank you very much for your work and your comments.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for all the information.
Okay, another special presentation on the search and rescue equipment. Mike?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Want to take a few brief moments to update you on, and the citizens, on some new search and rescue equipment that we've received and have put in service just recently in the last few weeks, and also how it was funded as part of that as well. To give you just a really brief overview of how the search and rescue works in the state of Kansas, there are 8 state search and rescue task force teams across the state. It is a deployable asset from the Kansas State Fire Marshal's Office. That just happened in late 15, where we started the fall under the Kansas State Fire Marshal's Office. The nice thing about that, if we are deployed from the state, there actually is a fund set up that we can get reimbursements for labor, for equipment. If we're deployed to another part of the state, that is something that is there. But we don't have to be deployed to activate. We can simply self-deploy, like for example, Baxter Springs. When that happened, we went down there automatically. If a neighboring city or county calls us, we have that choice. Also, we have this equipment to use, which is the most important part, right here every day in the city of Pittsburgh, on any event that we feel that is needed. But that's nice. The first priority, like I said, is it stays with us. We in Southeast Kansas, we're part of Task Force 4, and that is brought up of basically we represent 12 counties. And there's 7 different departments that make up Task Force 4. That includes Parsons, Chanute, Iola, Fort Scott, Neodesha, Coffeyville, and of course Pittsburgh. There's 3 caches of equipment that come with those different Task Force 4. One of those is located in Parsons, one is located in Chanute, and happily now we can say that one of those is located in Pittsburgh. There's approximately 50 certified search and rescue techs throughout that Task Force 4. Here in Pittsburgh, we house the single largest number of personnel in that task force. We currently have 10 that are certified. I have an additional 10 that will be certified at the end of this year. That'll give us basically almost 2/3 of our department that are certified search and rescue techs. It's very long-term thing. It takes about 2 years to get that certification. So like we're finalizing some more this year, which will be good. They have several concentrations that they do to be certified: ropes rescue, high-angle confined space, trench, and structural collapse. It's a very extensive type of program. Basically what we have the ability to do is an all-hazards approach and response. Obviously we have equipment for entrapments. This could be entrapments in grain, as the picture shows here, or even in gravel, dirt, trenches, whatever it may be. Actually, a few years ago, we were contacted and we responded to Walnut, Kansas, where a gentleman had got his foot caught in a grain auger, and it sucked him down where he was basically the grain in his neck. So we were able to mitigate that situation and get him out safely with minor injuries. So those are the types of things. It's not what you typically would think of. It can really be a number of things. Weapons of mass destruction, unfortunately, that is where we're at in this world today. We have to consider those possibilities. So we have tools for that. Obviously, the first one people think of is severe weather. Tornadoes would be one of the larger ones. We've been to Greensburg, Arma, Baxter Springs, of course, Joplin. Those are all events that we have been to. Water rescue is another component to that. And that's what's nice about having this cache. One thing nice about having this new cache of equipment in Pittsburg is most of you know there's a very large river between Parsons, Chanute, and us. So there would be that potential sometimes that we could not get that equipment from one side to the other. So this will help us and our neighbors, Arma, Fort Scott, Girard, Baxter Springs, Galena. We're going to have a faster response time from here. Obviously, earthquakes is something we don't think a lot about, but we know that in Oklahoma, things are kind of happening a little bit more often. So it is basically a situation that we can do that. On to the equipment that we've actually got. First of all, we got a prime mover. That's basically the main vehicle that carries personnel. It is a crew cab style truck. It carries our personnel and also pulls the 36-foot trailer, which houses all the equipment. Some of the specific equipment that we have would be high-angle rescue equipment, ropes and Stokes baskets. Breaching equipment, we obviously have equipment that can breach concrete, steel, wood, because you never know quite what you're going to get into in those types of situations. A lot of confined space equipment, including tripods, breathing equipment, of course, in those types of areas. Shoring is a big part of what we've got. The picture in the top center is what they call a Paratech system, and then on the right is a raker system. And those are all types of situations where if we're having to go into a structure that is compromised to either rescue or recovery, we have to shore our way in order to make that rescue and in order to get out safely. Electronic equipment, we have listening devices, we have cameras that can go around corners, lots of GPS type stuff. When we're doing searches, it'll actually map out for us where we've been and what parts we've missed. Gas monitors and even hot sticks that we can determine if power lines are energized that are on the ground. So a wide variety of electronic equipment. Another component is self-sustaining equipment, tents, cots, sleeping systems, generators, individual bags, support bags. Basically, we train that if we're deployed, we have to be self-sustaining for up to 72 hours. Anybody that's ever been to a large event like Joplin, you really don't have anything. As far as food, water, electricity, you're pretty much on your own. So these systems allow us to stay there for an extended period of time until those other organizations can get in there and give us some assistance. Well, obviously, this takes a lot of money to do this, unfortunately, but the good news is this. All of these items that I've shown you and more is 100% funded by Homeland Security as part of the Southeast Kansas Regional Homeland Security Council. I sit on that council or on that board and represent the city of Pittsburgh. So some examples of what we've got. The truck itself the prime mover was $70,000. The rescue trailer was $18,000, and the rescue equipment that we currently have on our trailer is $66,000. If you see on the far left of that picture all those gold cylinders and gray cylinders that are horizontal and vertical, that's a Paratech system that does some of the shoring. That system alone by itself is over $18,000. Stuff is very, very, very pricey. The total so far, we're up to $154,000, which is phenomenal as far as all free for us. And there's more to come. We still have additional equipment that's coming in. Along with that, too, is we basically do either 1 or 2 day exercise per year where we get all the task force members together. They're very, very expensive, usually between $30,000 and $35,000. The image you see on the bottom is actually, it looks like a real tornado event. That is actually a house with a vehicle in the center and 2 of our task force workers in there and trees. That was part of an exercise in Neodesha, Kansas, where they literally had a home that was scheduled for abandonment to destruction, and they took a track hoe and basically buried mannequins in this facility, collapsed everything on itself. And so we had to practice, I mean, we had to shore to say, actually protect ourselves. Very, very realistic training, but they are very, very expensive. So it's another great asset for us. And like I said, I just want to make sure that you guys were aware of what we've got, the assets we've got, and also where the funding comes from. Because it is a very, very large piece of equipment and a very useful one.
Wonderful.
I just like to reiterate, there's actually no city dollars in this. This is all Homeland Security money.
Correct.
So that's great. Also had an opportunity to stop by and watch some of the training the other day. I appreciate that. It was very interesting.
No
If you
problem.
guys ever get the opportunity to go out and watch them train, it's worth your time
Yes.
to see the stuff they do, so. Any
No
other
problem.
questions?
Thanks for
Thanks,
going to all
Mike.
those meetings so that we
Thank you.
can get this.
No, thank
I
you.
bet there were a couple forms to fill out too.
Constantly,
Yeah.
yes, constantly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, consider the following. Service agreement, Opportunityspace Incorporated. Consider staff recommendation to enter into a service agreement between the city and Opportunityspace Incorporated to implement training, convert data, and integrate the building blocks to tool and support the city management of its real estate inventory.
Mayor and Commissioners, the 2 ordinances on the consider agenda are actually for the same purpose, right? One is a license agreement, one's a service agreement for the same tool, the same software program that we're getting. For the vendor asked for 2 separate agreements in this case. The land bank requirements under the state law that allows us to set that up requires us to post all of the properties that are under our control, right? So, and we can do that by just simply putting a static list out there. But we really wanted to do something more. We wanted to be able to make it a little bit more usable, a little bit more share a little bit more information about the properties, and hopefully get more information in the hands of people who might be interested in acquiring those properties or developing them in some way. So this particular software provides us a great deal of capacity to do that, and we'll show you here in a second. It allows us to import the data, so we don't have to do a lot of hand data entry. We can import a lot of the data from our GIS. All right. So and it has an analytical piece that we're going to be using to great effect in the future. But I thought Becky might talk a little bit about what the system will do initially for us.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So initially, it'll be a quick ramp up. This is an online system, and you can see, we're looking at Central Falls, Rhode Island, just by way of example here. But you can see it looks a whole lot like Realtor.com. Being a link outside of our website, an online tool, it's something that can be accessed by developers across the country, not just our local folks who could pull a spreadsheet and know where an address is, but they could see a bigger picture. One of the real selling points to this was the ability to add layers. So you can see in Rhode Island they have a development plan for a particular corridor, a reuse district, et cetera, et cetera. So we could add layers such as the TIF, the downtown district, the rural housing incentive district, those types of things, so that if somebody was looking for a place to build or redevelop, they could have all that information up front and not have to navigate through a series of phone calls to City Hall to figure out where those places lie. Zoning can also go up there in different neighborhoods as well. When you click on one of the parcels, it will open up pretty much just like it does on any of the other similar software, another tab that will give you specific information about that parcel, its location, and more information's that way. The other tool that it has is the ability to offer to purchase right there. So if somebody was looking at this, they could enter their information online, offer to purchase a parcel right there. That would generate an email to the appropriate person within the city departments. And therefore, it opens up our business hours to be passed when we're staffed. We can work on West Coast time, East Coast time, and after hours now. So that's just I wanted to show you that quick front end tour, so you know what you're getting. Jay mentioned that there's an analytical tool, and I believe after we come back, or after we get the data loaded, it'll be a whole lot more interesting to come back and show you that piece then. Instead of talking about what could happen, we'll show you what will happen. But I did want to show you this up front so you would see what we were getting into.
And it's $3,000 a year, in case you were trying to find it.
It was.
It's
Sorry,
relatively,
I was digging,
relatively low
sorry.
price, yeah.
It is 3 for the service agreement.
It's 3 for the whole thing, including the service agreement.
Okay,
And that's
license
referenced in-
and service, and
license
it's
and
per
service,
year fee.
yeah.
What about, do we have any idea on their travel expenses and those kind of things, what that could cut?
We don't expect them to have to travel at all. It would be unusual for us to have them come out here, right? So I would expect that they would not.
We're
come
looking
here.
at
A trip normally, if they do have to come out, a trip normally costs between $1,500 and $2,000. Hotel, travel, those kind of things, if they do have to come out. We don't expect that.
I'd move to approve item A.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Any other, or all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve item B.
I gotta read that, don't I?
We already did, didn't we?
No.
Okay. We talked about it,
Do I need to read that?
the license agreement.
You probably should read it,
All right.
Yeah.
please, Mayor.
Just messing with you, John.
That's all right. License agreement, Opportunityspace Incorporated. Consider staff recommendation to enter into an annual licensing agreement between Opportunityspace Incorporated and the city to provide and use a web-based software for the purpose of listing, managing, and analyzing real estate owned by the city.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All righty. Non-agenda reports and requests.
Just a couple of things, if you don't mind. First of all, just want to make the summary statement. The meeting started with some people acknowledging our public safety and the work that they do, and I think it was complimented as we went through the meeting with the idea that it's not just the staff, it's not just the technology that Jay's always pushing on all of us, and you're always luckily approving because it's very important, but it's also the equipment. And some of that equipment we have bought with the public safety sales tax to get us prepared, but a lot of it, the fire chief, Mike, has gone out and done an unbelievable job of positioning ourselves. It's hard to stand up in a group of counties and cities and say, look, we're willing to be the regional answer for your problems. This all has to be somewhere. We'll take on the training. We'll provide the manpower. We'll commit to coming out in the middle of the night in bad weather and whatever else situation. So appreciate that, but I think for the citizens of Pittsburgh, they need to understand that we take it very serious. All of this is meant to put us in a position to respond to their emergencies, to make them safe in Pittsburgh, and to make all of our neighbors safe. So just wanted to make sure we kind of wrapped a bow around that whole thing and put it into perspective, because it is important. Second, thanks to all of you and the staff for Saturday from 8:30 to 4:30. If anybody wondered where their husbands and wives and parents were, we were all in this room talking about very important things for 4 hours, setting the base for the budget that's coming up and looking 5 and 10 years out. So I appreciate everybody's time. It's a unique opportunity that we get to do that, and you guys do a great job. So, and with that, the one last thing is the street signs are supposed to be blue. We have figured that out. That was one of the outstanding questions from the working day. Are they blue? Are they green? They are to be blue. They will be blue, and the ones that were put up that were green at 20th and Broadway will be switched over to blue. So that is the new standard, and we apologize for any confusion on what color of signs we should have in town. With that, thanks again for your time, and thanks staff for their time. That's all we have.
I have one, got this little note tonight that Darren has been recognized by the International City County Manager Association for 25 years of service, and I would just like to congratulate him on that. So,
Congratulations.
I'm officially old.
you officially old, so
Thank you.
you bet. If there's nothing else to come before the commission, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are-